In today's video, I wanted to share my reading goals and books I plan to complete in 2024. If you've been here a while, mostly I talk about freelancing, business, lead generation, but I did want to bring another element to my channel, which is things that I really love, which reading is one of them. I do think it actually contributes to my business success, but I also just wanted to give more multidimensionality to my channel because obviously there's a lot of people who freelance, who do lead gen, but I also want to share one of my passions, which is reading. And I've seen so many people make great videos on books and reading and what they're reading. And so I thought I would follow along in that trend and actually share what I'm reading in 2024 and the goals that I have so you all can keep me accountable. So right now I'm actually reading a lot of fantasy series, and so I'm going to go through the series I'm currently reading or want to read and why I want to read them, in case you are also looking for some series to read, or you like fantasy, or you have no idea what you want to read, and this could just be a good jumping off point. So, like I said, I think reading has contributed to my creativity and success. I made a whole video about this. If you want to view it, it is on my channel. This year, I actually am setting out to read 50 books again. So in 2023, that was my goal. It was to read 50 books. I only managed to read 31, which I thought was also really great. Like shoot for the moon, land upon the stars, right? But this year, I really want to try and push it and get to 50. I've changed a lot of my habits. If you've watched the video, I don't watch TV as much. I've also kind of changed what I'm focusing on this year. So I do think I can hit the 50 books, but I am reading pretty long books. So we shall see if it happens. So in order to achieve this, one of the things that was a blocker for me last year, I think, in achieving the 50 books was when I would get near finishing a book, I would always kind of just stress about what I was going to read next. And I would spend so much time on Book Talk, just looking for new books to read or browsing Libby, the library app, and seeing what was available. But now that I kind of have everything lined up, I have a list of what I'm going to read. And so when I'm close to finishing a book, I just make sure I reserve that next book, and it makes it so much easier. So I think this year more time will be devoted to actually reading rather than trying to figure out what to read. So here are some series that I am looking to complete or looking to start, and I'm just going to go through each one. So A Song of Ice and Fire, also known as Game of Thrones. I have watched the series twice. I really enjoyed it. I actually didn't get into it until near the end of the series in 2018, 2019, and then I watched it again in like 2021. So it's been a couple years since I watched it. I found it to be a really great tale of just perseverance. And if you think about the series and if you know about the series, a lot of the characters actually start at one of the worst points in their lives. So I'll give a little bit of background for people who don't know anything about Game of Thrones. So there's a character, and she's actually the beginning of the series. She is sold off to her husband because her brother wants to be king. There's a character who is a dwarf, so he has physical limitations and abilities, and he is kind of always pitted against his brother, who is this really great swordsman. There's a little girl who she doesn't feel like she wants to be that typical princess or wife character. She instead wants to be a knight, so she's trying to find her identity. There's a little boy who takes a fall and he is no longer able to walk, so he kind of has to find his way in the world. There is another girl who is kind of trapped in a castle, and she loses her family and she has to find her way in the world. So we see a lot of disadvantaged characters, and by the end of at least the TV series, these characters kind of rise in their power and we see them overcome so many obstacles, which is the number one reason why I love this series so much. So because I loved the TV series, I really wanted to challenge myself to read the books. There are more details in the books. We can also see what the characters are thinking. And so far, I have read the first two books. I have three more to go with what's currently released. And then the author should be releasing two more books in the series. And it will have a completely different ending, I've heard, than the show. And if you watched the show and you didn't like the ending, I think this is a great way to kind of get back into the series and see the book point of view and where it takes us. So I'm super excited to finish this series. I actually have a little app on my phone that keeps track of the characters, where they are on the maps and stuff. It explains all the houses and the intricacies of everything. And so there's just so much to dive into in this series. I'll probably actually reread it in the future too, because there's so many details, very well written. And so I'm excited to finish the last three books that are currently published this year. These are pretty long books, so in order for me to reach my 50 books, I'll kind of have to pair these with shorter books or dedicate a lot of time to reading. So that is the first series that I want to finish. So Outlander, I put if I like it in parentheses because when I made this presentation, I was still in the middle of reading the first book and I was unsure if I was going to continue or stop after the first book, but I have decided I am going to continue. If you want to see my review on the first Outlander, I posted that review on Goodreads. My username on there is Alicia Barnes. If you're having trouble finding it, let me know in the comments and I'm happy to link my Goodreads to you. But I'm excited to finish this series up. I've only read the first book and there are 9 books currently, and I believe there's a 10th one that's going to be published. I've never watched the TV show. This was just recommended by several people and I decided to really just go for it and read the first book. It is set around the Scottish history, as well as there's some time travel in it, and also some like natural medicine. And so I'm really excited to see where the series takes me. I didn't love the first book like I thought I would, but I see the potential in the series. And so I'll be giving you updates on what I think about Outlander as a whole, and what it's like reading it before or never having watched the series. I don't know if I'll ever watch it, but I do know that I don't want to watch it before I finish reading the books. A Court of Thorns and Roses. So this is a very popular fantasy series. I've heard a lot about it on Book Talk in particular, and I decided to start reading it because I had just seen so much about it. I wasn't necessarily super impressed by the first book, but I do want to keep reading to see what the hype is all about. There's a lot of fantasy. It's kind of like a play on, I would say, Beauty and the Beast, but I wasn't going to continue until the last portion of the book, and then I found it to be more exciting and I want to see what happens to the main character. And so this is something else I want to finish in this year. Throne of Glass is actually written by the same author as A Court of Thorns and Roses, Sarah J. Maas, and I have not started this series, but I also heard that that is a good series to read, so I have it on my to-read list for this year. Dune. I started Dune back in 2022. I had watched the movie and I really liked it. Ended up getting the book, read it at the end of 2022, loved the first book. Last year, I read the second book, Dune Messiah, and I started reading it at the beginning of the year. Didn't really get into it, but I finished reading it at the very end of the year and see that there's potential in the rest of the series. And I forget how many books are in this series. I believe there might be 4 or 5 more, but I do want to finish reading it. It's very sci-fi, world building. There's different houses, kind of like Game of Thrones, but people are actually going to other planets. So I just want to see how things end up. It's definitely a very heavy and intellectual read. What I recommend with this is having it on both audio and book, so that way if it gets a little difficult to follow along, you have both formats. And yeah, it was written a while ago, so I want to be able to see the take on it, and super excited to finish that series as well. Okay, so here's some more that I want to read. Most of them I haven't started yet, which I'll start with the one that I have. So, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. That's a 3-part series. I read the first book. I'm currently reading the second. Super easy read. It's young adult. It's a mystery. I think that it's really great. I just want to finish out that trilogy this year, and so I'm excited to not get started, but finish that out. Lord of the Rings, I've actually never read Lord of the Rings, believe it or not. I watched the movies for the first time, I want to say 2 years ago now, and I did like them. And so it's just been on my reading list for a while, but this is the year that I want to do that. The Light Lark series, this has 2 books in it so far. I believe there's going to be more released, and I just found an inkling to read these because I did see the author on TikTok, and she is a newer author. And so getting into reading and even getting into writing myself, I do want to be exposed to newer authors, and it's fantasy, and I've seen a lot of my friends read it, and so excited to read that series. Don't know a lot about what it is about. The Empyrean series, this is huge on Goodreads right now. So this is Fourth Wing, and I forgot the second book's name. But I know I'm hopping on the bandwagon of like the hype, but if so many people have said it's good, I'm pretty sure it's good, and so I want to read it. And The Poppy War, this is, I believe, a 3-part book series as well. I read another book called Babel by the same author, R.F. Kuang, and I am so excited to read the Poppy War series because I loved Babel. I love how it got me thinking. I love the way the author wrote. And so, yeah, these are all the series that I want to read. In between reading all of the series, I do think I'll read standalone books as well, especially to hit my 50 book goal. I'll need to put some shorter reads in between because a lot of these books are pretty large. And in running a business, I don't always have time to dedicate like a few hours of reading a day. So we'll see, but I know that these are all the series that I mentioned, I do want to finish this year. So if you have any tips, if you've read any of these and you think they're great, let me know in the comments. Or if you haven't read any of these and any sound good, let me know. Maybe we could read them together. And thank you so much for watching. If you do want to see more book videos on this channel, please give me a like or let me know in the comments. I do think I'll post maybe a monthly book video of what I've read that month, or if I feel inspired, or if you guys are thinking that that's what you want, maybe I'll just post each time I finish a book, my thoughts on that book, and if I'd recommend it or not. That might be a little bit harder in the series, like the series books, but we shall see. So let me know. Super experimental doing this in video on my channel about books, but super excited to see where this lands with you guys. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.